Hello and welcome to Deploy. I am so excited to welcome the community of developers and entrepreneurs to our first ever global virtual conference. Over the next 24 hours, we hope you will find several sessions that engage you, whether it is tips and tricks about our products, best practices from the community, or expert commentary about cloud and software development. Who would have predicted in the 21st century a global pandemic could put the brakes so quickly on human activity? We are proud at DO that the tech industry has led the charge to connect people and continue enabling entrepreneurs to innovate and thrive. One thing we humans do, it is to persevere through innovation and creativity. I can argue that in recent times, our industry, technology, software, and especially cloud, have enabled more people around the world to express their creativity with each other than any other industry. We have done this by providing a canvas in the form of platforms, tools, and services to developers around the world to build their ideas into apps and businesses. Cloud enables more people to build world-changing software than was possible ever before. We at DigitalOcean are doing our bit to contribute to this revolution by focusing squarely on the cloud needs of developers, entrepreneurs, and small and medium-sized businesses. And while we are not the only company to do this, we do believe we are different for a host of reasons, not the least of which are our values. Our unique and enduring values keep us going and keep us connected to all of you. Our values are our guiding light in how we engage with you and among ourselves at DO. We start with community and we end with love. We wrap those around simplicity, openness, and inclusion and accountability. Community is where we get our energy from. It's from you. We thrive by enabling your success. Simplicity is vital as it focuses us on what is important to you. And we believe it's a core value proposition to bring simplicity in everything we do. We speak up when we have something to say, and we listen when others do. This is about inclusivity and openness, and they are important because we serve a global customer base, and it's a large opportunity. We need all members of our team to bring their best and never worry that that's not good enough. And we are accountable to you and to ourselves. Our customers put enormous trust in DO to build their business. We have to be reliable, secure, and scale to your needs. Finally, DO love. We love what we do, and we love what you do as developers and entrepreneurs. Enabling your success is the honor of our lifetime. As I said earlier, the cloud is a canvas. One of the beautiful things about creating a canvas is that the artists surprise you. We are constantly surprised by the breadth of user scenarios that are being exercised on our platform on a daily basis. Whether it is personal learning projects, running simple websites, large e-commerce applications, commercial SaaS applications, or streaming media apps serving millions of users, we see them all. When I say you can do anything on DO, I say it with a lot of humility. We really believe we are the only cloud that serves developers of any skill and apps of any scale. When we talk about doing anything, we realize that during this troubling time, probably the most important thing to do and something most consistent with our values is to support our community. When COVID struck, we realized that to help people do good, we don't necessarily need to build special products at DO. We simply need to make what we have, our infrastructure, more accessible to those who are doing good. Hub for Good is our way of helping the global community find solutions to COVID, to inequality, and to injustice. We are proud to enable innovation in these areas by donating our infrastructure, and we are proud that Intel has partnered with us to support this objective. Among the participants in the program is an effort called Corona Status. Corona Status has built a project which is a fine testament to the power of open source community. Corona Status was first started by Michael McMillan, a developer for BusByte, a consultancy in Norway. I won't be able to describe it as well as he can, so I'm going to ask Michael questions now so we can learn more about it. Hi, Michael. Tell us about what you have built and what was your motivation to build it.
Thanks, Yancy, and thank you so much for hosting us on DigitalOcean Deploy. We're a small consultancy based in Oslo, Norway, called BusByte. And when the COVID-19 outbreak hit Norway, we realized that it was difficult to know how many had actually contracted the virus, because there were few tests being done, and the government struggled to build an official digital self-report system. So at the same time, we knew that the numbers of daily new cases were growing exponentially. So it was pretty scary. So being software developers, we thought that we could build something that could scale better than having to wait for the government to build their own system. So what we did was we quickly built and shipped something, which is called Corona Status, which tries to track how many are experiencing COVID-19 symptoms. So this is an open source web app, and it lets people anonymously self-report COVID-19 symptoms by answering a set of questions in a form. So it took us about no longer than 4 hours from writing the first line of code to shipping it and actually having a website up and running on DigitalOcean's infrastructure. And in the first week, we received around 7,000 self-reports in Norway, which was kind of mind-blowing. So we just iterated on this application and received pull requests from other developers in Norway, shipped new features. And one of those features were showing maps with clusters of different symptoms, charts, and stats. And we also have this open API that lets you explore the data in the app itself. So you can actually use that for research and other things. So what was really cool about this project was that after gaining a little bit of traction on Twitter, a bunch of developers all over the world started piling on and forking the project on GitHub, sending pull requests. So it very quickly scaled in terms of contributions as well. And today it's actually launched in 30 countries, and it's translated to around 36 languages.
How did you land on DigitalOcean?
So for the past 6 years, all the way back to when we founded our consultancy, we've been using DigitalOcean. And we've been primarily using it for the droplets, so like the virtual machines and DNS. And it's kind of just escalated from there. So with every new customer we've had, whenever we're the ones responsible for infrastructure, we've been pushing DigitalOcean pretty hard because we're the ones managing and developing on these machines. And we're also familiar with Google Cloud and Azure, but we don't find them as simple to use as DigitalOcean, which is great. And the pricing is more predictable. Not to mention it's also less expensive. And we like to experiment a lot, spin up new apps like Corona Status. So it's nice to kind of know that the billing is kind of so that that is cheaper than Google Cloud and Azure.
Now, I understand you're using Kubernetes for your app instead of building directly on Droplet VMs. What prompted that decision?
So with Corona Status, the way we built it starting out is we had one droplet or virtual machine per country. And as contributions came in and as we launched the service in more countries, that was becoming increasingly painful to manage. So this was like a VM running Ubuntu 18.04, Nginx, an SSH server. And these rollouts were becoming pretty tedious because we had to make sure that the state across all these machines were similar to have the confidence to roll out a new version. So what we did was we then transitioned from Droplets over to Docs or your Kubernetes offering, which was great because this way, we could describe the infrastructure or how the apps were working, and simply ship that same manifest, times 30 to each country. So we could descriptively kind of lay out how these apps were working, which freed up a bunch of operational, like manual work that we had to do previously. And also we found out that by actually using Kubernetes, we also cut our costs of the whole project by around 20% because the resources were utilized in a much better way, as the apps could now kind of scale in accordance to how much traffic it was receiving and not kind of hogging up, 1/30th of the available resources at any given point in time. So that was also interesting.
And how has your experience been using some of our managed services like Kubernetes and DBaaS at scale?
So our experience with Kubernetes and the load balancer on top of it, and also the managed database that we've been using has been great. So like I said in the start, this was all running off Droplets or virtual machines using a flat file SQLite database per country. And that was okay at the start because there was really no need for these databases to talk to each other. So each instance was kind of isolated by itself. But when we moved over to, or from virtual machines to Kubernetes, we realized that we had to replace SQLite with a database that would run in its own process separately. And that's because pods are ephemeral and they die. You don't have this persistent file system. So we did a bit of research and we landed on using Postgres, and that was a natural fit because we could just translate the SQL schemas that we had used for SQLite into something Postgres would understand. And then we just had to rewrite the storage adapter that we used to actually write data off to the database. And I think this entire transition from SQLite to Postgres took like a day, which was kind of cool. Yeah, so this is kind of of course, this is a no-brainer because what we used to do was, SSH into each of these machines, back up everything, either mirror the site or put it into maintenance mode, and then perform, an upgrade if there was a new patch on Ubuntu or any of the other like software it was running. We had to do that like 30 times, and even with scripts, that becomes very not a very stable way of doing it. So moving over to Kubernetes, just took all of that stuff away, and that was a game changer that made it a lot easier to sleep at night. So that was a very positive experience.
Finally, you're off to a great start, and we appreciate you coming to DO to test your ideas and build your ideas. What do you see as the future of the Corona Status effort?
So the Norwegian government finally got around to launching this official self-report website. We had to log in using your kind of taxpayer identification, which is good, but we believe in open source. And we also saw that, right, when we built this, that the whole world could kind of just chime in and send pull requests and fork it and send contributions. So we're a huge believer in open source and also open data, right? Because the data that's collected by Corona Status is open to everyone. Like you can download it and you can even explore it. If you're not a technical person, you can click on the maps and you can actually explore the data. So if you're curious, you can just check that out. And we think that's important because what we've seen is with all these official government solutions to the self-reporting is that the data is always, with the government. That's not something that's open. And we think that's a bad thing. When it comes to Corona Status itself, or the app, we kind of consider that to be done. So feature-wise, we're not building anything new on top of it. It's kind of it's doing what it's made to do. And it's also, if you think about it, it's kind of inevitable that we'll experience a new pandemic at some point. And when we do, this is an open source web app that hopefully will do or will sort out self-reporting in a scalable way.
You saw Corona Status using some of our newer products, our managed Kubernetes service and our managed Postgres database. And to talk about these products and many more recent innovations in our product portfolio, I'm going to hand it over to our product leader, Apurva Joshi. We call him AJ.
Thank you, Yancey. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm super excited to be here with you all. I'm AJ. I'm head of product here at DO. I joined DO after spending 17 years with Microsoft working on Azure, one of the leading clouds for enterprises. While there are certain similarities between what we do here at DO and what the other clouds are doing, our vision is very different. I tell my product management team, be careful what you measure because that drives behaviors. And what I mean by that, if you look at the large cloud providers, their measurement is catering to larger enterprises, right? How many multi-million-dollar deals are we closing every single month? Those measurement drive certain behaviors. Those drive product innovations. Those drive product requirements, right? And the end results is what you end up seeing with the large cloud providers is 200 plus different services with all kinds of complexity and a very difficult pricing and difficult to understand. Our focus here at DO has always been the needs of developers, the startups, the entrepreneurs, or the SMBs. Whether it is somebody who's trying to run a personal passion project or a small team of developers trying to prototype their first app for the SaaS business, or an SMB trying to migrate their workload to the cloud for the first time, our goal has always been, how can we provide the most friction-free cloud experience for this segment of customers? How can we make things simple? And the simplicity does not stop at just the experience of the product. Our simplicity at scale and predictable pricing allows us to resonate with lots of you around the world. People who are the builders, the thinkers, the admins, the dreamers. We hear you. We are you. This is your cloud. And I want to thank you guys for taking a bet on our platform and growing with us and allowing us to be part of your journey. Thank you. I want to share, one common thing or one of the most important things that we've learned during our cloud journey so far is that, developers, they love simplicity. While they love the simplicity, they also value the choice. And what I mean by that is that, we realize some of the devs are full stack developers, right? It's a one-man show. They do a bunch of stuff by themselves, roll up the sleeves, and they want to have a full control over the infrastructure. Things like SSH into the Droplet, have some settings that allows their application to fine-tune and run in a right possible way. At the same time, there are other set of developers who are willing to give up some control in exchange for productivity or convenience, right? They don't want to manage the infrastructure. They want to focus on writing awesome code. The idea being, we want to be the outlet that provides all these desires. And we strive to provide these options by having the offerings like Droplet, Kubernetes, and App Platform that we'll talk about that in detail as we make progress. Starting with Droplets, you have a full access to infrastructure. You can do SSH and configure your app the way you like it on the App Platform. We will manage the infrastructure for you while you write an amazing code and get by with it. One thing that we'll notice throughout everything that we do, there's a one common thread that is around simplicity in all the experiences that we provide. Whether it starts with our amazing documentation, our user experience, our in-product experience, or our pricing, it's just outright simple. The pricing, we don't nickel and dime in a way where you're hosted, whether in Singapore, we're in London, we're in US, the bandwidth pricing, for example, is flat. Whether you're accessing your own storage, we don't charge you for number of gets and number of puts in a hot storage, cold storage. It's a flat pricing. It's predictable pricing. It's just simple. And that resonates with most of you. Let's take a little journey into how we have evolved these products and the businesses. Starting with our infrastructure as a service, our hero product, the most popular product, Droplet. Droplet is our virtual machines, our core IaaS offering. We started DO with the Droplet as our first product, and it was $5 Droplet with SSD. There's a little funny story behind that. The founders did not have a intention to start with SSD as a Droplet, right? One of the founders was working late one night and, was staring at his laptop, and he saw laptop with an SSD, and he thought, why not give the SSD to my customers, right? And next thing you know, next day morning, he orders a bunch of SSDs, screws them up with the hypervisor, and there you go. You got $5 Droplet SSD. Amazing product market fit. That's what made DO what DO is. The simplicity, doing the right thing for our customers, and giving more value for the price they pay. We continue on that journey and came up with a various version of our basic Droplet, previously known as Standard. They came in with multiple vCPU and RAM combinations. We always provided a generous amount of SSD and included bandwidth that was really, really popular with our customer segment. Fast forward a few years, we heard from our customers. They wanted to run a broad range of business applications. So running on a basic Droplet with a shared thread on a hypervisor was not an option. So we went ahead and introduced a portfolio of Droplet that we call as a dedicated CPU Droplets. They include things like general purpose Droplets, CPU optimized Droplet, one of our most popular SKUs. A memory optimized Droplet, right? They all provide dedicated CPU with variable memories, storage, and transfer. And transfer is always included. The amount of transfer that you get within one given Droplet, it keeps on adding every time that you create a new Droplet, and it keeps on adding to your account. Like there's a handful of customers who all at any time can actually run over the bandwidth quota. It's that generous, right? And again, a biggest value prop for our customers. We also know that apps don't live in isolation, right? So once you start compute workload and build application, you need offerings like, to store your data somewhere. You need block storage, you need object storage, you need firewall, VPC, load balancer, backup, snapshot. You work in the teams of 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You need all that surrounding products in the ecosystem for you to build a really large applications that scales, that are secure, and that are collaborative, right? So we kept on investing into that set of product portfolio to support our Droplet product ecosystem. Today, we are very excited to make a couple of announcements with our Droplet family of products. The one that I'm really super excited about is with our memory optimized Droplet, again, one of our fastest selling SKUs and most popular one, where we heard from our customers, they want to achieve more with less. And with the same size of a Droplet, that's becoming popular. And we have decided to go ahead and make them less expensive for our customers. I'm excited to announce 11% price cut to our memory optimized Droplet starting today. And it is effective immediately. The other announcement, it goes back to, listening to your customers. We heard from our customers, they wanted even more storage for the workloads like, large NoSQL databases like MongoDB, Elasticsearch, analytics service like Grafana, etc., right? These machines require VM compute and a really large memory with a really, really large disk. So I'm really thrilled and excited to announce a new addition to our Droplet family of product, storage optimized Droplets. These Droplets will support these applications that require a data-heavy compute, a data-intensive access to a disk with a low latency processing through a faster disk. And these VMs and these Droplets are going to be backed by NVMe-based SSD storage. And I'm super excited about this announcement. Starting today, they will be available in our 5 data centers in Europe and US, and more regions are on its way. I hope you all are equally excited about these changes and announcements that we are making in the Droplet family. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys and getting some feedback. How can we improve and make this better moving forward? We spent some time talking about the infrastructure side of the thing, how we started the business on a Droplet side and how we made the company what it is with a laser focus on a customer segment. that we enjoy to serve every single day. Let's talk about cloud native. You can do cloud native on DIO. We've been also hearing from our customers that Kubernetes and the entire cloud native way of building application is something of a lot of interest to most of them. It's winning a lot of mind share for multiple reasons, right? Containers by definition provide a bunch of amazing benefits. To name few, like you can efficiently package stuff into a single unit. It provides the consistency of deployment across environment. It's cloud agnostic. People love it. And as you know, Kubernetes, as a lot of you know, it's a de facto way of orchestrating the container workload, right? It's winning a lot of mind share. It's the hottest thing out there. And this is what we kept on hearing from our customers. They wanted the support for these cloud native technologies, and we listened. We invested in the space. At the top of our Droplet, what we ended up building, what some might end up calling as the best managed Kubernetes service for the devs and a small business out there, period. And I'm not making this up. This is exactly what I hear from every single customer that I talk to. Our managed Kubernetes service provides the control plane for free of charge. Think about it, it's free of charge. You know what this means? It means you can run a real cluster in the cloud as little as $10 a month. While the other cloud providers will charge you $70 just for the control plane. And then you add the VMs on top of it, right? 1, 2, 3, and slowly next thing you know, the bill runs into $200 just to learn the new technology or just to learn the Kubernetes. We don't think that's fair. Our low cost makes DIO Kubernetes perfect playground for people to come learn Kubernetes by using it, by spending $10 a month. You really don't have to install Minikube on your local machine and try and mess around. Learn in a real cloud what this offering should look like. Not many can say that. And we certainly hope that once you've learned Kubernetes and when you start building your application, your project, your dreams, you will continue to choose DIOKS and build your business on top of our managed Kubernetes service. You saw Corona Status earlier and how they're using DIOKS. Stories like that are fantastic. That's what keeps us going, right? That's what keeps us motivated every single day to do more. We have lots of fast-growing businesses that are choosing our DIOKS offering for a variety of reasons. It's simple, it's affordable, and we hear stories from customers who are moving from a large cloud providers to our platform just because their businesses were not viable on those platforms. And what I mean by that, the charges and the pricing as they grew their business were getting so expensive, there was nothing left on a table to reinvest back into the business and grow. When they moved to DIO and enjoy the simplicity and scale in the pricing, all of a sudden the business is viable. They're able to take the earnings and reinvest in the business and grow with us. That is really humbling and satisfying as a head of product here at DIO. Again, when you're working with containers, there is no better way to store and manage your container images than keeping them closer to your Kubernetes cluster. We all know that. It makes it really simple. And it helps you with a low latency. You don't have to pay or incur any bandwidth charges for pulling your image out and whatnot. Overall, fantastic solution, right? So we decided to invest into Container Registry. We launched a DIO Container Registry where you can store your images within DIO Data Center right next to your cluster and enjoy the low latency without incurring any more charges, right? So we're pleased to make our Container Registry product offering GA today. And I hope you like this service as much as you like our Kubernetes offerings too. Thank you. I want to talk about one customer, right? They built their business on top of DIOKS. You heard from the customer before, and now Scraper API is one such company that is making a bet on our DIOKS platform to power their own platform. Scraper API is an API for devs to build scalable web scrapers. It's a really big problem, right? Scraper APIs handles proxies, browsers, CAPTCHAs, so you can get the HTML from any web page within a simple web API call. Even they're trying to work to simplify end users and a developer's life really, really simple. They resonate with some of the philosophy that we have here at DIO. They participated in our startup incubation program here at DIO called Hatch. They quickly grew over the last year with us and scaled quickly with us by taking advantage of some of the features that we have in our DOKS offering around cluster scaling, right? So you can add, remove nodes automatically as their usage fluctuates and their business grows. They utilize some of the features around managed Kubernetes upgrades, right? So when the new patch comes up or the new version of Kubernetes comes up, they really don't have to manage and update that themselves. We take care of that ourselves, right? And I want you to pay attention to the quote that we got from the CEO of the company. I really like the gist behind it. What made them move to DO? It was attractive because it was simple. The pieces that we had in place, they just made sense. And there's not overly complex product. There's not the weird stuff that you get from cloud provider. They got the basic thing that they needed from the platform. They needed load balancer. They needed Redis. They needed Postgres. They got it, right? They needed a bunch of droplets that can scale up quickly on docks. They got it. And the final point that they're making about the brand, our community, our developer community, and us having an amazing reputation with that community is really, really humbling. It's not something that you can build overnight, right? I tell this to people, if you think building platform is harder, building community is even much, much more harder. And that's something we're super proud of. And having been talked about your platform, and having your platform recommended to your fellow devs in a platform like Hacker News is a big deal in our opinion. It's a really, really humbling experience. Let's talk a little bit about the PaaS side of the world, right? And again, it's my favorite topic. Having spent a lot of time building PaaS solutions, I always get worked up and excited about this topic, right? So I understand some of you are comfortable with Kubernetes, right? And would rather run your apps directly on VMs. I get it. But I also get it that this stuff can get complicated real quick, real fast. So there's a set of customers at the end of the day, they just want to focus on running the apps without really worrying about the complexity and the infrastructure. And I get that too, right? That's why we started investing into a PaaS product portfolio over the last 2 years. We started with Marketplace. We have Marketplace, a platform where devs can find a pre-configured applications and solutions to get up and running with a single click. Right? You can find hundreds of pre-configured applications, one-click apps that we like to call them, that are popular, such as WordPress, Docker, Flask, Grafana, CloudBees, Jitsi, you name it, right? And many, many more open source projects and packages that are out there in Marketplace ready for you to consume. One click, they get deployed on Droplets or DOKS, choice of your compute, and it helps you get started really, really quick. And very popular service and very popular offering from the team. They keep on innovating, and the more images keep on coming every single day. And I'm super proud of that. We spent some time to go out and make investment into database space. We thought, spinning up a database should not be a really difficult job. Most customers just using databases to use them as a backup or store the data from the application, right? And it should not be really complicated to go out and spin a database onto a VM. Instead, we built our first ever managed database offering where you can launch a really scalable database cluster, whether it's MySQL, Postgres, Redis, you name it, just with a few clicks, right? And then you can access via APIs or a simplified UI, whatever tickles your fancy. And you never have to worry about the maintenance, right? We manage the database for you. We operationalize all the life cycle of the database for you, upgrading the security patches, right? As you scale up, we handle the scaling for you. It's taken care for you, right? So that's what I meant by managed databases. And it's, again, one of our fastest growing product lines that we're super proud of, and our customers are really enjoying and loving that. Finally, last month, we launched our app platform, our latest addition to a platform as a service offering. Like I said, having built multiple PaaS platforms with different cloud providers over the last decade, one thing I can say without any reservation about DO app platform is that this is how PaaS should be done in 2020. Let me explain you why and what I mean by this. It would have been very easy for me and my team to go out and do a standard thing of providing a simple, very thin API or a management layer on top of Droplet and call it a PaaS. Instead, we wanted to build a modern PaaS that is not only takes care of the orchestration of containers and infrastructure management away from you and the user, but it is built on top of open standards. is built on top of open source, is future proof, is consuming all the benefits that we are leveraging and contributing back as a community in the open source. It is actually built on top of our managed Kubernetes, right? And we run these shared multi-tenant clusters around the world to run this app platform, and are benefiting and contributing back to the larger open source ecosystem where we can all grow together and continue the innovations, whether it's PaaS and a function as a service, serverless, whatnot in the future. But the ground has been set, and that's the technological advantage that we have compared to the other PaaS that are out there in the market. Super exciting stuff. Really, really proud of that. We've been hearing great feedback from our customers for the last 1 month since we've launched. A lot of good feedback, a lot of feature requests. The team's working really hard to get all these feature requests incorporated and have a good roadmap planned out for next year or two, with lots of good goodies coming up. The app platform integrates directly with your GitHub. The GitLab and Bitbucket integrations are on the roadmap. It's coming pretty soon. But it directly integrates with your GitHub repos, right? It picks up the code, builds it automatically. Every time you make a change, it notifies, we rebuild and deploy the application for you. It works with the languages of your choice, like whether it's Node.js or Python or Ruby. It works out of the box. If you happen to use a framework or a language that we don't support out of the box, don't worry. You can bring your Docker file, give it to us, we'll run the app for you. Effectively using app platform as a container hosting or execution service. Very powerful. And yes, finally, right, it offers up to 3 free static sites. Free for life, right? This is our first ever perpetual free offering from DIO, and it's something we are super, super proud of. We are very excited about this offering and this new service, and cannot wait to, for you to try it out and hear from you guys. On that note, please join me in welcoming Jake, Senior Director for our PaaS product team platform, and he's going to take us on a ride with our new app platform demo.
Thanks, AJ. Let's take a look at the app platform in action. We'll deploy a sample app. In this case, we're going to build out an RSS reader. So this is a DigitalOcean RSS reader. I kind of miss the Google Reader. I like getting my news unfiltered. And so we're going to deploy something that looks like this. It's currently a screenshot, but in the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to make this a live application. We'll use 2 repositories on DIO Community. They're created thanks to Mason and Chris. One is a Python Django backend, which is going to provide the API for my RSS reader application. And then I've got a React front end that's going to provide that nice user interface on top. So with that, let's get started. I can come to the app platform, and I can launch my application. I can choose a repository. In this case, we'll start with the API first. And I go through, and I just need to name my application. In this case, we'll call it RSS. Choose a region and a branch that I want to deploy. App platform is pretty cool. It lets me automatically deploy any code changes to that branch, so I can have an always up-to-date running application. And in just a couple of seconds, it's able to detect Python application web service. There are a bunch of optional settings that I can go through, which I'll come back to in a minute. But this application needs a database for storing all of those RSS feeds. So you can come and add a database as I'm creating. I can choose an existing database, so one of my DigitalOcean managed databases, for example, or I can create a brand new development database as part of this application. Now let's come back and set our environment variables. So this is got a few standard Django environment variables. So I need to turn debug off, for instance, and I need to set the Django allowed hosts, which in this case just needs to be the URL of my app. I don't know it yet, but App Platform is going to create that URL for me, and I can use it even here without knowing it ahead of time. And then finally, one more that I set up for this application is called my App Platform route, which is just the address that I can access this API on. In addition, if I need to create a custom build command, I can do so, so that I can custom tailor the build process, or even the run command. So in this instance, I need to add an extra variable to my run command. But once we get that all set up and everything looks good, I can hit next. It's just going to ask me what tier of service I want. In this case, I'll stick with the basic tier until it's time to scale this application out. Go ahead and launch that. And we'll see that my application has been created and it's in the middle of building right now. And I can drill into the details to see exactly what's happening throughout this build process. Great, looks like our build is complete and our deployment was successful. Just a few more things we need to do for this Django application to get it set up. One really cool thing about the app platform is I can console directly into one of my running containers. And so if I need to do things like one-time database creation, it's a perfect tool for that. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll run Python manage migrate, and this will apply all my database migrations directly to that development database that I just created. And while we're at it, we'll create a super user so we can log into the admin console for the app that I just created. Great, so we're all set up. Now we should be able to access the API that we just created. In this case, the API interface is on admin. Go ahead and log in. While it's not beautiful, it's up and running, right? So we're going to create that nice user interface in just a little bit. But here we can see that my site's up and running. It's secured by default, thanks to the app platform, and I've got a domain that I can work with. Perfect. You can see back here in the app platform, as I was accessing that application, all the runtime logs are available straight through the user interface of the app platform. Amazing. Let's keep rolling. What we need to do now is deploy that static site, that React UI that I was talking about earlier. And so one nice thing about the app platform is I can have a multi-component application, so not just a web service and a database. I can go ahead and create a background worker if I need to do some processing in the background. I can also create a static site, which we're going to do in this case. And that's just going to let us find that front-end repository that I showed you earlier and deploy that React application. So yeah, sure, we can call this component RSS Reader front-end. Very quickly detects that this is a static site. No, let's make this a static site straight on the root route, so whenever I access my my application, I get this UI. And then I need to add in just one more environment variable, which is the it's the React app API URL, and in this case it needs to point to the public URL of my my API service that I just deployed. That's it. That should do it. When I go ahead and hit next, I can see this isn't going to add any cost to my application. And there we go, we're launching that static site. So just like we saw earlier, it's going to go through and build and deploy the application with this static site. Even as that's happening, even as that build is ongoing, my site is still up and running. So everything about app platform deployments are completely zero downtime, right? So this interface is still up and running and working for me even during this deployment. Great, that deployed successfully. And now I can go ahead and visit my application. I'm going to see that new user interface that we were talking about, the Sammy Reader UI. I can go ahead and log in. here we are. I can subscribe to any feed I want. In this case, let's add in the DigitalOcean blog. App is up and running, and when I go ahead and click, I can see all the latest headlines from the DigitalOcean blog. Amazing. All right, let's do one last thing. Let's go ahead and scale this application up, right? Let's say that maybe we're getting a ton of traffic and our RSS service, we need more instances of it. So we can go right into the component. I can scale up first by choosing professional tier, and then I can scale out by adding as many containers as I want. I hit save, and that's really all it takes to take my application from prototype to production. Probably want to scale my database in a bit, but we can do that through the app platform as well. Just like before, even in the middle of scaling up, my application is still up and running. Come into the Sammy Reader app, I can go ahead, I can subscribe to more feeds. So in this case, let's subscribe to the NASA feed as well. I can add that in, right? Everything is working fully, even during the deployment. Here we go. Great. It looks like that deployment is all done. We're successfully scaled up and out. And one way we can know is we can take a look at our insights. Insights are going to show me all the metrics and details for each of the components of my application. Here, let's zoom in just a little bit to the last hour. This is for our API component. We can zoom in even more here and see just recently we went from having that single container RSS0 to 2 containers RSS0 and RSS1. That scale out was super helpful for any traffic buildup we have. That's it. Thanks for taking a look at the app platform. I'm going to pass it back to Yancey now.
As you saw in that demo, we are staying true to our promise of simplicity of developer experience. As many of you know, we started out as a cloud where developers learned, grew their skills, and experimented with technology for their personal projects. While we are proud of that legacy and stay true to it to this very day, we are also realizing that many businesses are now discovering that they can build much more sophisticated applications on our cloud, especially with some of our newer products like optimized droplets, Kubernetes, managed databases, and now platform as a service. We provide all the power and flexibility of a modern cloud at a fraction of the price and none of the complexity of many of our competitors. We take this opportunity very seriously and are confident that if we continue to make developers productive, we will keep inspiring more apps and more businesses to reach their fullest potential on DO. You see some of our customers here who are doing great things on our platform. These customers are doing things as diverse as running a managed hosting business, building a telecommunications platform, running an edge computing platform, or simply running a web development agency. I now want to call upon one of our longest running customers, Akib from Cloudways, to tell us a bit about their solutions. Hey Akib, what are some of the trends you are seeing in the web hosting world, and how is the cloud impacting this space?
Sure. I mean, the space is getting pretty competitive and exciting. It depends on which perspective you take to analyze the trend. For example, in the managed content and e-commerce space, the top, that is the enterprise market, it's being highly dominated by giants like Rackspace, managed AWS, Acura. Then you have the bottom. That's where you have the mom and pop shops, and the low end of the market, the mass market, that's being pretty dominated by Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, and those kind of DIY players. Then you have the mid one, that is the mid-market and SMBs who really appreciate the flexibility of open source like WordPress. But at the same time, they understand the opportunity cost of not having a reliable hosting partner, and that's where Cloudways comes in. If you zoom into the managed WordPress space, then pretty dominantly, app centricity and specialization is the trend. Gone are the days where you could just expect, or you could just offer a black box compute, and what's going inside that compute is not your concern. It's not going to work now. Cloud has changed that. In fact, managed cloud is just now a table stake, but what you offer on top of that really matters to your customers. Customers increasingly want to run their WordPress like a SaaS that is completely hands off, and they don't want to deal with all the complexities, and they want themselves to be least bothered about that. So in essentially, they want to run WordPress like a Shopify, right? That even includes management of their application plugins, their workflows, making sure that upgrades are in place, making sure that things are not broken, so they can focus on getting their job done. Then the other interesting trend in this space is headless. So as customer experience and the user experience is becoming a North Star, I think headless offers a great deal of flexibility, performance, and speed. And I assume that the app platform that you are launching, by the way, congratulations on this milestone. I think that would help in building and doing these kind of stuff. Finally, I think the space overall is doing pretty good. So the CAGR has been great, and COVID has been a catalyst. The widespread digital adoption and the new offline to online reality, that has been bringing tremendous growth, I believe.
Now, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in running a managed cloud hosting business at the scale that you've achieved?
Sure. I think at high level, maintaining the consistency and reliability of the service at scale is a big challenge. Things that used to work for you for like few hundred applications or few thousand servers, they don't work at scale. And that's where you need the right and the fine intervention to make sure that you are neither over-enterprising nor being too cowboyish. Practically, I think it depends on your choice, the kind of platform that you offer. Is it a widely open platform where you have a lot of choice for infrastructure and workload? Or it's a closed platform, so you have one application and one cloud? Is it a standard stack, or it's like one customer, one problem, one solution? Are you offering, let's say, to mass market or only to enterprise market? Because the protocols and the processes to deal with both are entirely different. Then you want to serve the global market or the local market. Because needless to say that if you add horizontality to your offering, it brings complexity, right? It's one thing to deal with the billing and infrastructure lifecycle management of one cloud provider, and it's the other thing to deal with like 4, 5, 6, 7 cloud providers. But that's where you need to lay out the right foundation and the agnostic architecture to absorb all the complexity and offer great and flexible experience to your customers. One other thing that is pretty challenging is support. And support is a deep component of managed offering. So in a high growth environment, besides setting the right expectations around the widely open world managed, that is setting the right scope, I think it's important you have a proper training organization and proper tools and processes to train your people as they are on board and activate. So that's, I think, is one other challenge that I would like to share.
Now, DO has supported a lot of your growth, and I'm glad to hear that. How have we helped you in terms of providing ways for you to overcome these challenges?
Sure. As I mentioned, DigitalOcean has been a great partner. Just one thing I want to add in the last point that I mentioned around challenges for managed market, right? So while we invest in support, right, in people and in processes and in training organization, one thing that I would like to share is that you need to really invest in support automation as well. So that Amazon principle, like the best customer service is the one that you never need. It just go beyond the lip service, and you really need to walk the talk and do something about that. That really helps with support skill. Coming back to your question, I think 2 things I would like to mention here. One is that the SMBs hate complexity and surprises, right? So what DigitalOcean did, basically they pioneered simplicity and predictability in the cloud space, and that being pretty much regarded and loved by our community. The second thing is that we want great service at a great price. So the price to performance ratio of DigitalOcean is the best in the market with the unmatched reliability, and that really helps. I think these 2 areas I would like to say.
And finally, most importantly for us at DO and the customers out there at Deploy, what are some of your next big projects, and what areas are you planning to invest in?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of excitement going on around our product roadmap. think we have a lot of exciting initiatives around peace of mind and productivity for SMBs, for especially digital agencies and e-commerce who run mission critical workflow around their user experience, scaling needs, security, performance, and workflow. So you're going to hear a lot of exciting things from us in the future.
Thank you, Akib. It's time to wrap up now. I thank you for joining me. We have an incredibly exciting lineup of sessions and content for you over the next 24 hours. I cannot wait to hear from you, from our teams, and the broader community on how it went. Enjoy, deploy.